All right, so we're wanting to do another reaction series, but we're doing we want to diverge from the beloved Star Wars franchise because we want to make sure that we hit all of our interests. And so today we're going to be actually going through something that just recently came out last year, which is Demon Slayer, a show that we've all been very fond of. Thanks, Jason, for introducing that to all of us. And we're actually going to just kind of talk about our what we liked, what are like kind of like the cool things about this past season, the Swordsmith Village Arc, and kind of go through like what we liked. We decided to not do a full like episode per episode reaction for this because we figured that there's just some episodes that really don't we can't really cover with the full like a full podcast episode. So we decided we could probably get our favorite moments from the show and make it into this podcast episode. So that is what we're doing here today. So who wants to kick it off?
I mean, I can jump in first. Again, shout out to Jason for introducing us to Demon Slayer. That was the first anime that I watched. Now I'm almost all the way through Naruto, so shout out anime. I think just overall the season was definitely different than what we've seen in the past few seasons. We get to see Tanjiro on his own. Obviously, Zenitsu and Inosuke aren't main characters in this season, which was a little sad. I mean, maybe we don't miss Zenitsu crying as much, but we do miss Inosuke and a bit of the craziness there. But I think the action sequences were great in this season. We get a lot of character development for, I think the upper rank demons is where we see most of the character development. But again, we get introduced to Moichiro, the Mist Hashira, and Mitsuri, the Love Hashira, and kind of their backstory. And Demon Slayer just has this ability to like give you a character that you think you're gonna just absolutely hate, and somehow they just flip the switch and you end up loving that character so much. So for me, I thought it was an awesome season. Super super pumped for what's coming up, and happy to kind of dive into it a bit more.
Yeah, I completely agree. They're such good storytellers in Demon Slayer, and ultimately, I think it came down to for this season, um, what can Tanjiro do on his own? Because he did have help from his boys for the last couple seasons, but this was really cool for him to branch out, just co-op with Nezuko, and then meet two more Ashura. Um, who I love both of them. I thought they did really good on their backstories, and it's no Rengoku. It's going to be hard to get to that Rengoku status, but Swordsmith Village Arc was awesome. And they started off strong, a little bit slower in the middle, and finished really strong as well. So
Yeah.
I agree.
No, I think
also,
we
hang
definitely.
on. Side note,
Yeah.
I actually think so. I appreciate the shout out about showing you guys Demon Slayer, but I think y'all have both now watched way more anime than I have. So you guys have like surpassed me. Like I showed you Demon Slayer, and then I'm like struggling through Attack on Titan, but y'all are like 8,000 episodes into Naruto and One Piece. So I'm trying to keep up, but I do appreciate the respect given.
For sure, man, for sure. And I totally agree. Like one thing that we joke around a lot about with anime, especially with One Piece and Naruto, is how much filler there is. And I think, in thinking about the Swordsmith Village as a whole, it would be tough to do like an episode by episode review. Because it felt like there's like 6 episodes in the middle where Moichiro's just stuck in the water prison pot. And you're like, okay, Moichiro, like you
Get
ever
out
getting
of
out of this
there.
pot, bro?
Uh,
you know? Like 6 episodes of, oh, we're just gonna keep on cutting to him. He's still trapped, whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, I think for me the hallmark of the season was definitely the upper rank demons. So if you guys want, we could dive in there and kind of think about that. I think it obviously kind of opens up with Akaza in the Infinity Castle, which was really cool. And then kind of right
Such a
off the
cool
bat,
sequence.
yeah, so cool, right? When he's like skydiving through the castle and stuff, like and then we get to meet all the upper rank demons, right? So we get to meet upper five, upper four, upper three, Akaza, right? We already met him in the Mugen Train arc. We get upper two, and then upper one, which was pretty crazy reveals for those
Crazy.
guys. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on those guys. Obviously, the season we looked a lot at upper 4 and 5, Hantengu and Gyoko, but yeah, I would love to get you guys' thoughts on those demons.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that sequence, just the intro to it was just went hard. It was so cool, and then to the point where it's like, okay, where is the show going to take us, right? Because you have Akaza like going through the Infinity Castle, but then you just like you actually see the grand scale of it all, right? And then you think that it's like, oh, it's just like this massive place, but no, it's like it's almost like like a city, right? It's like this whole thing, and then all of a sudden, like Akaza's like going through all the different corridors and like getting raised up on platforms and then diving down below, just to get to this one spot where all the demons end up like meeting up, right? And it was cool because it's like after at this point all of the like the lower ranked demons have been destroyed, and either by the demon slayers or by Muzan himself, which was
Yeah,
crazy in the
that was
in the
nuts.
last in season 1 or is that season 2?
Mugen Train. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Mugen
was
Train
Mugen
story
Train,
arc.
right?
Yeah.
That's right. So you get to this point where it's like Muzan's kind of running out of demons to go and fight, right? We have a cause. I mean, these guys are formidable. These guys are tough. Like they're not some demons to be trifled with, but like it was just cool to see that they had to have this meeting to kind of plan again and be like, hey, what are we gonna do? And Muzan kind of just being he's very like mysterious. He's very like
Being
enigmatic.
being the smooth criminal that he is.
The smooth criminal that he is, kind of just basically like going out for like the purpose, right? Because we just kind of coming together, trying to make like these concoctions and stuff. See him kind of in his laboratory, but like it's like you see him like down below. He's like upside down while they're just kind of just hanging there, and he's talking to them in like another room or whatever. And you have like the witty banter between all of the demons, kind of like responding to him, right? And it was just cool because we always just see like the demons as kind of like, oh, we're here to just eat humans and be done, right? But you don't really see like there's actually a lot more organization to their whole like setup, right? And so I really enjoyed seeing that like that beginning part with the demons and all that stuff. And
Yeah, it started off strong because it's what they've, I feel like, done in a lot of is hinted at what's coming later. Obviously, none of us have actually read the manga because we want to watch it. But seeing the Infinity Castle and knowing that that is probably coming farther along, it's really cool to kind of get hints at, oh, hey, this is what we're up against in probably sometime soon, hopefully.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, just to hear all the demons talk, it's giving more substance to Akaza, who we all really like / really hate because of Mugen Train. And I'm excited to see where he keeps going. So
Yeah, no, I like the same thing with Akaza is like he reminds me so much of Darth Maul from Star Wars almost, right? Where it's like this villain where it's like I hate this guy, right? He killed Qui-Gon, right? You look at Akaza, right? Akaza killed Rengoku, one of like the most beloved characters, but like you see him up against the other upper ranked demons and you're like, dude, like I'm rooting for that guy, you know? Like he's one
yeah,
of those villains that you love so much, you're like I'm kind of rooting for you, you know? So,
yeah, I thought he was
um
cooler than 4 and 5. I do. I really
oh for
do.
sure,
I even we haven't seen two
he's cooler
yet, but
than
like I think I like Akaza more than two just off of the limited dialogue.
it's true.
totally.
Yeah, I mean he is. I would say the same thing. I mean upper one has probably got like my win over Akaza just because he is like it was that coldest scene, right? Where you have Doma and Akaza just fight, like having this like banter where they're like kind of, or I guess Akaza's arguing with Doma and Doma's just like whatever, right? And he like raises his hand and then 1 second it's gone. And you just see upper one just hitting there with like his sword in his hand. You're like, oh, like who is this guy? Or when he asks, or like when he first gets there, right? When he first gets there and goes, "Is upper one here?" And he goes,
Yeah.
"Yeah, he was the first one here." You're like, oh, this guy's clean.
Yeah, dude.
Like just this whole mystery around him, is so cool.
Yeah, no, I think like, and that's what makes it so engaging, right? You see him there, he's like kind of rocking the Haori look, like he's got the Demon Slayer, like Nichirin sword. You're like, bro, is this guy like ex Demon Slayer? He's got like the sun breathing marks. It's like, is he related to Tanjiro? Is he related
Right.
to other characters in the show? Like, did he turn evil? Was he corrupted by Muzan? Like, and I mean throughout this season especially, right, like kind of moving forward towards like once Tanjiro actually makes it to the Swordsmith Village, you're introduced to like they have the doll that looks like a sun breather from the past, right?
Yeah.
And as well, like the shared memories that Tanjiro has, right? Tanjiro has those dreams with the same figure, right, that has the sun breathing marks on his face and the long red hair and everything. So you're like, are these the same people? Like, are they somehow related to Tanjiro? Like, what's the mystery like surrounding Upper One and this other character? Are they the same? Like, I don't know. It keeps me super engaged. Again, just really excited to
True.
see what that reveal is and who those characters are.
And I mean, continue on from that, right? With like you mentioned, Jake, with the doll, which is like the basically like the training doll from 300 years ago, and
Yeah.
they had put it there to kind of like train demon slayers, make sure that their weapons are like up to like the swordsmiths. They also like use that doll to kind of like keep up with their make sure that the swords are worth something to fight the demons, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that scene was cold too because it's like you see Moichiro training with it, right? And he ends up breaking it, like breaking his sword. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, oh, well, game over, right? And then that's like, that starts with like Tanjiro's training montage where he's training with it the entire time. And they're like, oh, like, what's going on? What's going on? This is cool. He's getting to that point where like Moichiro, he's a Hashira, right? We know like from the stories and stuff that he is like the youngest uh person to be a Hashira and to get to that like elite level. And he's almost like Tanjiro's looking at him and being like, oh, I want to get to that point, right? And so he's like, I gotta train like he did. If I want to be a Hashira, I gotta train like he did. And he's like, what training, do that all stuff. And it was cool. Even just the montage was actually kind of sick because like doing all like the different
Mm-hmm.
like maneuvers around him, right? Around the doll to kind of like be able to try to get it. And it wrecks him at the beginning, right? It like keeps like throwing him. It makes sure like it's not an easy thing, but you see kind of Tanjiro like his resolve just never failed and just kept on going.
And I think that was an interesting part too as well. I mean, obviously that's kind of our intro to Moichiro, you know. You get to see him kind of show up and again, Moichiro's been in the show. We saw him briefly at the Hashira meeting with the master of the mansion, right? Um and again, like I was saying in the intro, you know, like they bring in these characters that like we just hate, right? Like Moichiro, like from the beginning, I was like,
But
I can't stand this dude, right? Like just an airhead,
Season
can't
one,
remember.
man. Yeah,
Yeah,
season one.
right.
None of us liked him in season one.
right.
Yeah, and from the start, even here too, right? Like he just comes off. He's just like, oh, I'm just here to like the swordsmiths are just here to build my sword, and I'm just here to kill demons. And he's like, like doesn't see like the swordsmiths as like people. He's like, you're literally just like a means to like build my sword, you know? And like, you're like, dude, who is this guy? You know, like
Yeah. This is a dirtbag.
usually like demon slayers are like compassionate. Obviously, they're like firm and they're like, we gotta kill these demons, right? But Moichiro is just another level. But then as you go throughout the series and you learn more about his background with his brother and with his parents and stuff,
Mm.
like, and again, you hear this dialogue with the master of the mansion where he's like, you're the mist Hashira, like mist breathing and stuff, right? But they also liken that to like the mist that he has like in his brain, right? And how he's lost his memory. And so that was cool as it's like as he really trusted himself to not be like cold and calculating, but to like open up and experience these emotions that Tanjiro kind of brings him to throughout the season. That mist starts to clear away from his mind, right? And he remembers who he is. He remembers where he came from. Um, and I think, that really makes him a better demon slayer. And you can see the difference from when he's fighting upper five before remembering a lot of his identity and all of that to after when he's fighting upper five again. And just like the power difference in like knowing who he is, having that mist cleared from his mind was really cool. And then, in the end, you can see the compassionate side of Moichiro, and you're like, okay, this guy again is a character that I really like,
Right.
Yeah, I loved his backstory. I thought it was awesome being a twin or having a brother that just he was the other brother,
Yeah.
right? And he
Right.
overcame all that and um, didn't have the easiest life. I mean, it's been really cool to see the backstories of the Hashira, but also the demons
Mhm.
across the show already. And I think they did a great job with his in early on in the. It's technically more in the filler episodes, but also you kind of see it in the beginning as well.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say one of the biggest, like one of my favorite things about this show was, I mean, we've had like in season one, we had like little arcs in the entire episode, right, which were awesome, and then some of them were kind of like them training on rehabilitation and all that stuff, right? The Hashira meeting, those kind of like little filler episodes, kind of like bring the story together. This season didn't have that, right? It literally went like episode one, intro into Swordsmith Village, episode two, kind of like them getting there, and then episode three, boom, we see upper three, right? Or upper four, like all of a sudden
Mhm.
appear. And upper four and upper five just come in, and you're like, holy cow, like they're already here, right? You hear them say one little line of like, we know where they are, we know where their Swordsmith Village is, like where the swordsmiths are, so go like destroy them. And then boom, the next scene, they're there. And you're like, okay, holy cow, this like this the rest of the season has to be just fighting, which what it was, right? And it did focus. I mean, we forgot to mention that like we see Mitsuru, we see Moichiro, but we also see Genya, and
Yeah.
that was also like another character, as you guys were saying, another character who we just didn't like. Like he was a dirtbag um at like the initiation trials, and like after he completed, Tundra broke his arm, and he was just kind of this. He's just been a dirtbag, and then he just disappeared, and then you just see him like once more time when they were in like the uh like when they were at the Master of the Mansions, like the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters.
Hmm.
You see him one more time there, and then nothing. You're like, oh, okay, whatever. But then you see him here, and you're like, okay, he's still a dirtbag. This guy's just here, just trying to get kind of like in the same vein as Moichiro, where he's like, I'm just here to grab my sword so I can leave. Like, I'm not here to spend time, not here to chat, not here to do anything, right? But there's Tanjiro just kind of being like the innocent and like his innocent self, trying to gauge Genya and trying to get him to like converse, right? But it was just cool because we only like during the entire battle we see a lot of just Tanjiro fighting. Like that was kind of like the main focus, right? Like you mentioned before, Moichiro spends like 6 episodes in the water prison, right? And then it's just like
Hmm.
it's between him, and then Mitsuri doesn't come in until like a little bit later. We see like one or two like scenes of her at the beginning when she's like
Hmm.
helping trying to save the mayor and stuff. And then it's like normally towards the end where we see her kind of like actually fight the upper four.
Yeah.
Um and so it's cool because I mean we love Chandra. We want to see him like kind of flex his sun breathing powers, but it was also cool to kind of see Genya and kind of what he was going through. Right, we get Genya's backstory, and that one was probably the hardest hitting one for me. I was like,
That
this
was
guy's a
nuts.
dirtbag. His brother's a dirtbag. We don't like him. They're awful, and then we see like what
Yeah,
they went
bro.
through, right? And it was like, okay, all right, I like this guy. I feel bad. That's awful. This guy's cool, right? um and I really enjoyed that aspect because I also really liked the backstories kind of like in the fight, almost right, like in the fight sequences where we see him. Like some people might disagree because they're like, oh, I just want to focus on the fighting, but like it is cool to kind of see like what is their motivation to keep fighting, right? What is their motivation that keeps them going? And even like sometimes they tap into that, be like, oh, I'm losing this fight, and then it goes into their backstory, and then you're like, no, but I need to keep going, right? Moichiro is a perfect example. He started remembering stuff as he was in the middle of the fight that gave him the power to break through the bubble. And so I just really like seeing the fights. I really like seeing like how we just jumped right into it, right? And we got all that like extra
Hmm.
content from it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's a great point you bring up because I felt the same way about Genya, right? And again, I think he's one of those main characters that we have in this season, right? In the past few seasons, we have, Hashira and then like Zenitsu and Inosuke, but this season, Genya was such a central character. And like you were saying with Moichiro, right? Like as Genya is fighting these battles and stuff, you're learning more about his story and what his drive is when he's on the battlefield, right? And I totally agree with you in the sense of like we've met his brother, right? Sanemi, the Wind Hashira, which was kind of a crazy connection, right?
Yeah.
But it's like everything that Genya's doing is like I need to become a Hashira so that like I can see my brother and like clear the air with him, right? Because the last time that he saw his brother was when he killed their mom that had turned into a demon. And Genya didn't understand all of that and was like, called him a murderer and all this stuff. And just,
Yeah.
Feels like he's lost that relationship with his only family member that's still left. And
Yeah.
so I totally agree. It's cool. I mean, I think I'm definitely more part of the group that's like, I'd just rather see them all fight all the time, instead of like, okay, little fight, backstory, little fight. But like, it definitely does give you more connection to those characters, and you feel like, okay, like, these are the things that they're fighting for, and it makes them stronger. So it was cool, and I think definitely Genya grew on me as the season went on too. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's even go and talk about all of their purposes being in the village, right? The swords. Tanjiro's sword gets destroyed. It's pretty
again,
beat up again. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're in the process of getting the new swords. This village is notorious for producing the swords the demon slayers use, and uh, the demons show up and they start ransacking the town. And one of the guys that's building a sword refuses to stop. He refuses to
Haganeska.
like just give up.
Haganeska.
Yeah, and so like let's talk about that for a minute and the beginning of the battles. I just want to hear your guys' thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are kind of a couple side characters, right? You have like the warriors in the show, right? You have Tanjiro, Nezuko, Moichiro, Mitsuri, all those guys. But then you have these like kind of funny side characters they bring in, like Kotetsu. Kotetsu's the little swordsmith in
Yeah.
training, right? And
Yeah.
he kind of drove, like, to be honest, he drove me nuts through the show. I was like, this gets kind of annoying.
Well,
Um,
because Muchiro's just like, dude, run away. Like, I can't like defend you
yeah,
guys for a
right.
million years. Like, just go and hide. And they're just like
Yeah.
screaming, like, you're gonna die. He's like, obviously, like, hurry up and leave.
Right. So Kotetsu was a little annoying. I did like that he helped Tanjiro with his training, right, when he's fighting the doll. And in a roundabout way, he helps Tanjiro find the sword from the old time period. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but he helps him find that sword that Haganeska ends up working on, right? But it was cool to get to know more about Haganeska being Tanjiro's swordsmith. um, and again, like you think that Haganezka is just this dirtbag who like is mad at Tanjiro all the time for breaking his swords and whatever. But like you learn that like after Tanjiro breaks all of his swords, like Haganezka like leaves the village and he's like viciously training in the wilderness so that he can be a strong enough swordsmith to build a sword for Tanjiro that won't break. So it's
Yeah.
not like, hey, I hate you and stuff, but it's like I'm a failure as a swordsmith because I can't give you a weapon that like won't break. And so again, then Haganezka comes out and he's like Giga Chad Haganezka is like super shredded and he's like, I will restore the sword, just little hands thing. And so
Yeah.
he grew on me a lot this season, and I actually like his character. And like you said, when Upper Five shows up and is like, I'm gonna break this guy's focus, and Haganezka's like, no, dude, like I'm finishing this sword. That was really cool. So
I mean, I love that part too because we also get to see a face reveal of
yeah.
the swordsmith, right? Which is like the crazy thing where they're all wearing masks. Like even little Kotetsu, he was wearing a mask the
Mhm.
entire time, and you're like, oh, I don't get to see like you get to see a little bit part of it when he's actually like when Kotetsu's getting beat up.
Mhm.
You see part of like his face, but then you don't see the other mask, and then all of a sudden it's like it goes to Haganeska and his mask like splits in half, and he's just still going, and he's like he looks like Inosuke where he's just this handsome devil under the
Yeah.
mask, and it was just funny to see that, but that was also like a super cool part because you see like even um like upper 5 was like ridiculing him. He's like, come on, like you're gonna die, I'm gonna kill you, stop working on it. And he's getting like the lashings across his back and across his face, you know, and he's just like, nope, doesn't even pay attention to him, right? Doesn't even pay attention, gives him enough time to kind of like stall for Moitro to come in and help him out. And so that was, I really enjoyed seeing that, because I mean Haganeska, like you said, Jake, he's there to just find a sword. He's trying to like become better himself so he can better his skills, right? So that he can make a sword. And finally, Tanjiro finds this 300-year-old sword that's like all rusted and all kind of like basically going to garbage. But this is gonna be his sword. Like this is the sword that Tanjiro is going to use to slay, potentially slay Muzan. We don't know, but that's what we hope, right? That was the hope. And so like it's totally understandable that Haganeska was like, I need to make sure that this sword is the best one for him. And that was just such a cool part too, because I think the mayor was there too, and the mayor's like, what are you doing? Like, stop, you're gonna die. And Haganeska's like, just leave me alone, like let me just work on this.
Yeah, no, it was really, really cool. And kind of shifting gears there, I mean, like I thought it was interesting like the demons that they had in like the series, and love to get you guys' takes on them. I think upper 5, Gyoko, he's the pot demon, right? Like he was kind of an interesting one for me, like a little creepy. He's all about art. I feel like there's this big thing in anime about art, right? Especially watching Naruto, like a lot of the characters are all like, oh, it's all about art and stuff and whatever. But like I really liked upper 4, Huntengu. I thought that he was really cool in the series because he like had that ability where it was like, okay, if you like cut off his head, right, then he splits into like 2 people, right? And then you cut off their heads and they split into 4 people. And they don't like, it's like, okay, do they split off indefinitely? But like no, they get split up into like different emotions, right? So there's like joy, anger, sadness, like, and then eventually they come together, I think, to form hatred, who is like the super young one, and that has the powers of all of them together, right? And then he has the big like tree dragon things. I
Yeah,
thought he was a super
he
cool
was super
character.
sick.
Hatred
And
was
again,
awesome.
yeah, like he was like, again, I think it's interesting how they can take this show where it's like, okay, you think it's like black and white in the sense of like, to kill a demon, you have to like cut its head off with the Nichiren sword and you're done, right? But with these upper rank demons, there's always twists and turns, right? So with the twins, upper 6, right, you had to cut off both of their heads together. And Tanjiro was like, oh, that's probably what we got to do with all of these guys, with upper 4. But every time that you cut their heads off, even if it's simultaneous, like they become different groups, right? Or they have different powers or whatever. And it's not unless you cut off the like little tiny itty bitty guy's head that like you can actually kill that demon. And so I thought that he was definitely really cool in the show. And again, some of the action sequences fighting him were just amazing. When Tanjiro kind of unlocks that sun breathing again, like he did in the entertainment district when he was fighting upper 6, and he's kind of able to channel that sun breathing the same way that the unnamed sword demon slayer from like 300 years ago or whatever was able to do as well. So would love to get your guys' thoughts on that, and I don't know what you guys thought about the demons, and then again those action sequences with Tanjiro.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to go for it. Kind of just talk about like the sun breathing moment that we see with Tanjiro. That part was awesome. That was so cool. I remember just watching it for like that first time and seeing him just do the sun halo dragon and
Yeah.
absolutely just chop off 4 of the demon's heads, right? Just chop them straight off all together. And that was insane. I'm like, holy cow, this isn't just that, unfortunately we don't get to see him use water breathing as much anymore.
Yeah, that was a rip this season for sure.
But
Yeah.
he, like, you could tell like this isn't the same kid who fought, little lower rank demons, right? Lower rank of the 12 Kizuki. Like this isn't that guy anymore. And if that guy fought those demons, he'd end them in a fight. Like there wouldn't be a story because he would just wreck them, right?
Yeah, could you imagine him in the Spider Arc season 1 right now? Like
That would be nuts.
Yeah, it'd be game over in one shot, right? The way that I think
Bro,
about it is,
Rengoku would be
remember,
alive. Not even a hot
absolutely.
take. Not even a hot take.
That's actually a bold take. I mean,
That's not bold.
I think
Bro,
if
that's not bold.
Rengoku and Tanjiro were fighting together, then maybe.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that,
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
I
saying
think-
is Rengoku
Oh,
would
okay.
recognize like, hey, this dude's pretty much like a Hashira. Like, let's team up. You know?
Yeah,
Like, he'd
yeah.
recognize
If
that.
they would have fought together, I think they definitely stand a better chance. I think one of the biggest things probably working against them is like we don't know what Rengoku did off screen, but like you hear that Zenitsu said when like they cut off the head of the demon and the Mugen train came off the rails and everything, Rengoku used some crazy powers to keep everyone on the train alive, right? So it's like who knows how much energy Rengoku like spent there, you know? But again, you know, if he has a full powered Tanjiro next to him, like he was in the Swordsmith Village arc, like dude's Hashira level now, bro. Like he
Yeah,
popped off.
it's
Well, and you got to remember too. Like, I think one of the biggest things for me that's keeping me so engaged in this show is the fact that Rengoku didn't make it. Like that
Yeah.
cut me to my core. Like it did, and I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, I
it's
have
so
to
hard.
see this through. Like my guy just got, like he just did the most honorable death I've ever seen in my life. Like,
It's so
and
true.
I have to watch this man like the I have to watch him get what do you call it atoned or what is it where
Like
his justice is met,
redemption.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, and they do. I mean, it's kind of like Star Wars, man. They make you relive Order 66 in every single series, right? You're like, oh, here we go,
Yeah.
you know. And it's the exact same with Demon Slayer. Like, I feel like every single season we get some type of callback to Rengoku, right? So, like, right before Tanjiro uses the Sun Halo Dragon, you see Rengoku's hand on his back, you know, and he's like, "I got you, bro."
Oh,
And then right before
It's so
Moichiro
cold.
fights,
It's so
yeah,
cold. Like
dude,
right
they
before he
cut
fights
into your core right
Gyoko,
there.
right? Like same thing, you know. You get this moment where like Moichiro and Rengoku are talking together, and he's like, "Let's give it our all as Hashira," and you're like, "Dude, I'm like in tears over here, man." Like
I know.
Rengoku, our guy.
Well,
Oh.
and you bring that up. Muturo's like I forgot he's like what 16 or what? How old is he?
He's like
I think
14.
14, and he's just like, and Rengoku's like probably almost 10 years older than him, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're like talking like they're like the same age, and I
They're
don't know,
equals,
that's
bro.
crazy.
No,
Yeah.
it's so true. I mean, going back to like the sacrifice that you were saying, where like it kind of it propels you to keep watching the show. It's almost I think about it in like almost like Rengoku's like, hey, I may be dying, but we saved all these people, and I know that these three behind me, these three like little low level demons or demon slayers, they're gonna grow up and they're gonna train and they're gonna be like 10 times stronger than me. Like they're gonna be the ones to bring about generation, right? So he almost like bet his life on the new generation. And that's what I've seen like in One Piece at the very beginning of the show. It goes back Luffy's backstory and like this kind of like his older brother in a sense loses his arm saving him from like this massive like sea monster. And later on in the show, you go, oh, he's like, how'd you lose your arm? And he goes, I bet it on a new generation, right? And so it's
That's
similar
sick.
to that sense where it's like Rengoku bet it on those three so that he's like, I can die knowing that I saved these people, but that I'm leaving the world in their hands. And we see that, right? We see, I mean, probably one of the coolest moments. We'll get to it towards the end too, but like we see that sun breathing. We've learned that it kind of stemmed from, or all the other breathing styles stem from that. And one of the coldest moments is when Tanjiro's fighting like upper four, right? He's fighting the last the
Hatred.
He's fighting hatred, and you see him kind of like go back, and you have Zenitsu kind of telling him about his breathing style.
Yeah, dude.
And he goes, yeah, it's just all like you have to build your energy up into one explosive moment, and that's how you get it. And you see Tanjiro use it, right? You see him kind of like going for it. And I was honestly thinking, oh, he's gonna kind of like he's adapting it into his breathing style. But no, you see like the lightning that like shoots out from behind him.
Dude.
He's able to get there. And I was like, holy cow, this is insane. Like, oh, we see Tanjiro using other breathing styles.
Yeah,
So I
no,
want
that
to
all
part
what you think of that.
absolutely blew my mind, honestly. Like watching that for the first time, again, that the finale was great. I loved the finale of the Swordsmith Village arc. And again, like you're saying, I thought the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, like he's just learning something from Zenitsu about this, but you see the lightning and you're like, dude, literally like low key use thunder breathing right there. And again, like moving further along, so initially he uses that because his foot's all messed up, right? And he's like sprinting after the one demon. So uses that like thunder breathing to get there super fast and like goes for the head, like doesn't quite get there. And then at the very end of the show, he does a similar kind of rush like that. But if you look at it, it looks a lot like Rengoku when Rengoku uses flame breathing and he's able to have that speed to kind of like fight with Akaza and stuff and some of those other demons. Like it looks the same way when Tanjiro does it. So again, like creating those connections between the breathing styles. Again, like one of the things that I was sad about in this season was we didn't see as much water breathing from Tanjiro. It felt like in the entertainment district, he was like, okay, finally I have water breathing for like defense and for like being able to kind of, protect myself and conserve energy. And I have that like high offense, like sun breathing, where I can go and like inflict damage, and I would have liked to have seen that more, but I felt like they did a good job of showing Tanjiro's growth and saying, sun breathing is this more holistic breathing style that everything else comes from. And he's able to kind of access the shared emotions and shared styles of those other mentors and friends that he's had up to this point in the show, like Rengoku and Zenitsu.
Yeah, you got to remember too, if they showed him a lot using the water breathing, it would have almost seemed a little bit like he was resorting back and not progressing into
True.
the new style. So that's kind of why I feel like they didn't show it as much.
Mm-hmm.
But if y'all are good to shift gears a little bit, we have yet to talk really about Mitsuri, and then of course the last 3-4 minutes of the finale. So
Yeah.
why don't we start with Mitsuri? I honestly was so skeptical from season 1, seeing who she was. I was like, okay, they're just getting so creative on what Hashira can be, and I was so intrigued to figure out what her role was in all of this, and her backstory didn't let it down. And I thought she was a legit fighter. We know from Shinobu that she actually can decapitate demons. She's strong enough. Only Shinobu's the one that can't. So
Mm-hmm.
she's like has some brute force with her. And I thought, I mean, she handled once she got to the fight, I felt like she really handled the upper 4 really well. And I didn't think there was anything anything she said or that didn't reflect who she was, and it didn't help Tanjiro along the way, honestly.
Kind of to add on to that, Mitsuri was an interesting character too, because she the only reason she joined in with the Corps was because she wanted to find a husband, and that was like an interesting aspect to it, because you're like, why would you want to do that, right? Like, why is that the reason you joined the Demon Slayer Corps? And then from there, like it kind of just given her a little bit more backstory where she's like, she was supposed to be kind of like the pride of her family, and the fact that she kind of like got rejected, because like the men kind of see her as something, they don't see her as like very womanly, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was like there. No, she's like, oh, I just didn't fit in, right? And so she had to change her course. But like even then with that, it was cool to see like how her fighting style kind of was, I don't know what to say, like almost equal to her personality, right? She's very flowy,
Mm-hmm.
she's very ballerina with like that whip, but she's also like, I'm able to do damage, like you were saying, right? She's like one of the only Hashira that, or she's a Hashira that can cut off people's heads because she's strong enough, right? And she was able to like just absolutely destroy all those little fish demons from Gyoko, and destroy like those stone dragon things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That coming out of the ground, she's able to destroy those, and it was cool to kind of see, even though that she's part of that, she's still strong enough, right?
And
Yeah.
I feel like it is. I liked Muchiro's background a little bit better, but I think it's really cool to see that the writer of Demon Slayer has been able to give us a solid background that's completely different across every character we've encountered so far. So I don't know. Jake, what
Mhm.
do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I feel like I was like you guys, I was like, is Mitsuru, does she literally just exist for like fan service, And I was like, if that's the only reason, then I'm like, okay, this is a pointless character, right?
Yeah.
But then she shows up and you're like, no, like this chick's legit. Her sword is like pretty crazy. Again, like Lucas said, super acrobatic. One thing that I thought was really cool is I was like, okay, love breathing, like what's that, but apparently love breathing is kind of an offshoot of flame breathing. And again, like it was cool to see her in the show because she talks a lot about like, oh, I need to like raise my heart rate, like I need to like build this power within myself, in order to be able to expend more energy and in order to deal more damage, to move faster, like do all these things. And so again, I thought that she was a great addition to the show, and it was fun to see her relationship as well with Tanjiro and with Nezuko as well. With her and Nezuko kind of having that fun relationship of like big sister, little sister, and all of that. So again, I totally agree. I was a bit skeptical at first, but I thought that she was a great character, and yeah. But I think yeah, moving over into like you were saying, the last few minutes of the show, I remember watching that for the first time, right? And kind of the part that I'm thinking of is when the sun starts coming up, right? And Tanjiro and Nezuko are down in the valley. They have the sun coming, and Nezuko starts getting burnt by the sun, but there's still upper four is still chasing like the villagers, right? The swordsmiths. And Tanjiro's faced with this decision. He's like trying to shield Nezuko from the sun and stuff, but he's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, I can't leave Nezuko because she'll just burn to death and die, but I also can't let these swordsmiths die. And I think for like one of the first times in the show, you see Tanjiro at this point where like he really can't make this decision, right? Like he's
Yeah.
so split back and forth, and he just kind of gives up in that moment, which he never does, right? He's like, I can't do anything right now. And Nezuko at that point is like, okay, then I'm making the decision for you, man. Like leave me behind. And she, throws him kind of off from her, and then she just, engulfed in flames, just burned by the sun and stuff. And
Oh, and her
like you
screaming,
think,
dude. Her
yeah,
screaming is just like
Yeah.
haunting. You're like, oh my gosh, this show's gonna end right here. Like it's over.
Right.
right? And so it was just so like, dude, they played with my emotions so hard there because I was like, she's gone. And Tanjiro just like tears streaming down his face. He's like, I gotta go get this guy. So he kills he kills upper four, right? And then he kind of just sits there and he's like hands on the ground, like face on the ground, just like crying because he's like, the one thing that he has done this whole show, like everything, his whole focus is to save Nezuko, right? His last living family member, and like you have grown to love her so much, and like I remember feeling the same way. I'm like, dude, what's the point of the show, like she's gone. and
Yeah.
uh and sure enough, again we get a major twist in the show of Nezuko is the only demon who can survive in the sunlight, which was crazy. But
Yeah.
again, that whole sequence was just incredible, and really kind of like plays with your emotions and kept you so invested. I thought it was amazing storytelling. So
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think just the whole from start to finish, your anxiety is just rising because you're like,
yeah,
either Tandro is gonna let upper four Hatengu just eat those other like swords, like the other swordsmith, and just regain his power, because that was what he was doing, right? He was like, man, I'm starving.
yeah,
Like if I don't, I need to eat so I can like heal up, right? And so he's like, either I let Hatengu kill those people, he retains, like he builds his energy, and I need to fight him, but I also protect Nezuko, or I go kill him, but I let Nezuko die. Which I was thinking as soon as like Nezuko kicked him off and made like the decision for him, because we all knew that if Nezuko didn't do that, he probably would have chose Nezuko. Like he's like, I'm gonna protect you. You're my family. I'm not
yeah,
gonna like those people are dead. I guess good GGs to them. But um, he ends up kicking like Nezuko ends up kicking him off of her, and you just see like this realization in Tundra where it's just like, okay, I need to protect these people because this is what she would want me to do. And she's like burning, like you said, Jason, her screams as she's like shrieking, where she's just like huddled in a ball, like just basically getting lit on fire, was just horrifying. And then he, dealt the final blow, and he's just tearing up and crying, and then all of a sudden you just see her like standing there, right? And like her childlike innocence, you see her kind of, you're able to, we finally get to hear her speak. She talks
Mhm.
for the first time, right? Instead of just like the normal grunts, and aside from the backstory, or like Tandro's mind as well. You finally hear her speak, but you also like, then it cuts to Muzan, and you see Muzan going, finally, I found that person, right? I found a demon that um, can can survive in the sun.
Mhm.
And he's like, we're breaking the search off for the blue spider lily. We're like, no more upper ranked demons, no more like, no, I'm not giving my blood into anyone. I'm going to fight. Like, I need to go find this person to absorb her, right?
Mhm.
And that was crazy because you all like, it's Muzan has, because you forget that Nezuko's a demon that is connected to Muzan, right?
Yeah.
Like, she has Muzan's blood in her. And the fact that Muzan was like, oh, as soon as she did that, like immediately figured her out and was just like, we need to find this girl. We need to find Nezuko so I can absorb her and, survive in the sun. That part was kind of crazy to me too, because I'm like, oh yeah. Like, Nezuko is part of Muzan's blood. And not only is she like part of his like part has that blood in him, she has a lot of it because she's powerful. And she
Mhm.
is like, she was able to kind of expand her power super quickly when it took other demons like hundreds of people to eat. Like, they had to eat hundreds of people. They had to kind of like go over time doing that in order to get to where they were.
Yeah, it's been
Mhm.
cool to see her like the wrong word is level up, but she's kind of like ranked up consistently through like for sure entertainment and even Swordsmith where she like matured and got the huge horn and just like went crazy against upper six. Um even and then now like she can survive in the sun now, right? And so I honestly think Muzan's been tracking them, and then it was until this moment where he's like, okay, like we gotta actually deal with this kid because I need to be able to live in the daytime. That's kind of what's been holding me back this entire time from being
Mhm.
like the ruling all of Japan or whatever his goal is, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think honestly, like a lot of what we see, and again, this is just speculation now, moving past, we haven't read the manga. We don't know where they're at with everything. But I think we've seen her kind of level up with Tanjiro a little bit. And we have to remember, Tanjiro has some special ability that allows him to be proficient with with sun breathing, right? And become such a strong such a strong demon slayer. But then we also have Nezuko as well, right? If she wasn't a demon, like, could she be as strong as Tanjiro? Like, if it's based on blood or how they were raised or whatever, maybe she can be as strong as him, right? So, is there something in that family lineage that, when she became a demon, has allowed her the ability to survive in the daylight, right? Like, is there some type of connection between her and Tanjiro's family or bloodline or heritage or something, right? That has allowed her to surpass those other demons the same way that Tanjiro has been able to quickly surpass a lot of demon slayers.
Yeah, well,
Um,
and it's interesting you say that because I feel like in Swordsmith Village, Tanjiro's always having those visions or dreams or whatever of some guy that looks a lot like the upper one, right? Upper rank
mhm.
one. And so it does hint. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know, but it wouldn't shock me to find that out because of all these things Tanjiro keeps seeing or keeps remembering about. I mean, his dad looks kind of similar to it, or someone in his life that taught him the Hinakami Kagura or whatever. It
Mhm.
wouldn't shock me if there is a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, this season it was really good. I actually enjoyed it a lot, right? There were some moments that I was like, okay, that's interesting, like interesting direction with it. But then others where I'm like, wow, like that was mind blowing, like crazy, crazy change, right? And so, I mean, other like I really really enjoyed it, and it just made me excited for the future, right? We just got this they just released last month kind of like uh the Hashira training like trailer and also like the information for it, right? Tickets are on sale right now, which I still need to go look at and try to get to go watch the the first episode again. Um and we know that like this next season in a sense is going to be a slower one because we're just going to get Conroe basically just training to be into that Hashira spot.
See, you think that, and then you watch the
Right.
trailer. Then you watch the trailer, and you're like, "Oh, it ain't. It's not gonna be slow. Like, there's no
Well,
way."
exactly, right? And that's the thing. It's like you think about it, but this show has done such a good job even making like the silly mundane parts that could be like boring make it super interesting, right? I actually
Yeah.
enjoyed watching Tanjiro train with like as in rehabilitation. Like that was cool to see him kind of like Ham and Nosuke and their motivations and to like their motivation kind of go through it, right? And I feel like this is going to be kind of similar, but I feel well, we're gonna see all of the rest of Hashira kind of just be put into like the works. That's gonna be an exciting part. So I am super excited for the Hashira training and even more excited for what's gonna come after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can't say it any better than that. Just again, an amazing season, tons of backstory, great action, and yeah, just super stoked to see what comes next. I'm hoping that my favorite Hashira, Gyu Tomioka, stone or the water pillar, I'm hoping we get to see him a bit in the next season. But yeah, super excited for the way the story's going, and hope they take the time to do it the justice it deserves. So yeah.
I don't know about y'all. I watched this. I waited for the whole season to release, and then I watched it all. I binged it. Did y'all do the same? Did you watch it weekly?
We were
No, I
watching week
watched
by
it
week.
weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. See, and I think I liked it more because I binged it. Maybe I'd feel otherwise if I watched it once a week. Just watching other shows like Bad Batch, I feel like if it's a filler episode, I waited 7 days for something I didn't care about. But if I binge it, then it's like, okay, we keep going, we keep going, like that kind of thing. So I haven't
That's
decided
valid.
how I want to watch this next season. I'm gonna try and go to the movie, obviously, but um, yeah, I'm hoping I might be patient enough again to let it all release before I watch it.
Well, thanks everyone for your thoughts and everything. So is there anyone else I want to talk? I mean, there was probably a few like key moments we didn't talk about right in this, and this is just kind of like we were just wanting to get something wanted to talk about some of our favorite moments about it, right? There's probably something that we missed that everyone could probably comment on, but just know that we watched all of it. We loved, all of the good parts and stuff, and we're excited for what's coming next. So catch us. That's it for us. Catch us on that next one.
Later.
Peace.
Peace.